Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And we are joined by a special guest today. We've got our guy, Sean Corp, managing editor over at Detroit Bad Boys, the OG, you might say, one of the bigger supporters of the show. So we're super happy to have you on, Sean. And just as a personal note, little kind of peek behind the curtain, guys, last week when I ended up doing a solo show and when Blake had some issues pop up on his end, Sean actually messaged me like right after I hit start saying and asking if he could come on. And I wasn't looking at my phone. I totally missed it. So as soon as I shut down the show, I was like, oh man, like we could have had more than a half hour. We could have had a full show. So I feel like I let you guys down. And because of that, we had to make sure to get Sean back on the show. So Sean, thank you for coming on. I wish it was a little better circumstances, but I appreciate you having me on as always.
Yeah. And just to note how old I am, the reason that I didn't see your message earlier that you were going solo is because I was walking back from the library where I picked up a DVD.
Oh my God. What was the DVD?
Is it a good DVD? Yeah, we have to know.
Well, I'm watching all of the filmography of Peter Weir, director of The Truman Show and other movies. And so I was up to Fearless, his 1993 plane crash drama. So I'm just progressively getting older and less interesting by the second here.
You know, that's how it goes. We all progressively get older, right, Blake?
Oh yeah. We're in the same boat over here. Can't say I'm familiar with that one, but very big fan of The Truman Show. So I'll have to check it out. I don't even know if I have a DVD player anymore, which is sad. I'm sure I can brush like an old Xbox or something that you can play DVDs on. I can break that out, but that's not the same thing.
It was so old, my Blu-ray player wouldn't recognize it. So I actually had to rent it on a streaming service so I could watch it.
Jeez. I was going to say a lot of the old consoles and the older DVD players, I know they update security codes on Blu-ray and DVD discs, and somehow if it doesn't track right, you can't play it. I've ran into that before with like newer movies, but I can't imagine that being an issue with the old ones. This is not what I thought we'd be starting the show on.
Obviously, Pistons are going well if this is the first 5 minutes.
Well, it is.
Yeah, the season's over, right?
It is sort of relatable because I'm so tired of just switching from streaming service to streaming service for the playoffs. And I know the Peacock games, if you still have cable, you can watch it on NBC Sports Network. But I feel like it just takes so long to find out what's going on. And last night, when the Pistons lose Game 4, I flipped over to Lakers Thunder, and Pistons were on Peacock, Lakers were on Prime. So it was just a switch in between the games. It's just too much for me.
Yeah, it takes 30 seconds to switch games instead of 1 second.
Exactly. I am not a fan, but I guess it is the new normal. And I do enjoy like the NBC and Amazon broadcast crews and ESPN when they're still on, obviously, but it's just a little more of a mind twister for every game these days.
It is. Well, let's talk about those games, because last we were talking with you guys, the Pistons were on cloud 9, right? They just come back from that 3-1 deficit. They open up round 2 with 2 quick wins at home, defending the home court at LCA. And then they head out to Cleveland, and things did not go quite as well. Now it's differing levels, if not quite as well, right? Game 3 in the second half was actually okay. If they didn't have that terrible showing there in the second quarter, they'd probably come out with that one. In fact, they probably still should have won that game, and we could talk about those turnovers. And then Game 4 was well, it's kind of tough to watch. So let's just start there. Let's get the high-level overview. Sean, what were you expecting to see from this Pistons team when they hit the road to go to Cleveland? And then what's kind of gone wrong? At least speaking generally, we can get into specifics as they come up.
Yeah, I guess at the macro level, this team is what it is, right? I mean, that might not mean much specifically, but it's like we know the flaws of this team. We know the strengths of this team. We know how it manifests and when these things can snowball. I think in game 3, they kept it at bay until very late. In game 4, somehow they played a terrible half of basketball and found themselves winning because there is so much just natural talent on that roster and they play so well together. But then, the base is a little shaky sometimes, and that's what happened in the third quarter. They just didn't have any answers. They couldn't get stops. Their head wasn't in the game anymore, and it just really kind of got out of control. Doesn't mean to me that that's necessarily a precursor to what's going to happen in this subsequent game. They're switching venues. Cleveland is winless on the road, undefeated at home. So maybe things played out exactly how we should have expected. But regardless of how this series ends, I think we have seen what we need to see from this basketball team to know what needs to happen in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a little like we thought the Orlando series was certainly a wake-up call. And then, like Wes said, they're going on cloud 9 after winning 5 in a row. And this is another wake-up call, I think, to just tell you you're not out of the woods in whatever happened in the first 4 games of that Orlando series. It is definitely disappointing that you've seen some of the issues in that series come back to bite them. And I mean, Asar Thompson has been great this whole postseason, and he really struggled in game 4. I'm sure we'll talk about that more. And then, I mean, thank the Lord for Karis LeVert, because on a night where Duncan Robinson can't get anything going, Jalen Duren struggled, like Karis and Paul Reed off the bench provide the sparks. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to keep up with what Donovan Mitchell was doing. And I mean, we can talk about the fouls too if we want, but I think it just was another wake up call, really, which stinks that they were in a position to really take a commanding lead of the series, and now it's 0-0 again. But they're still in a position to win it, and you just have to get game 5 at home. And like you said, the Cavs haven't won on the road. They haven't lost at home, so it's going to be hard to win one in Cleveland. So game 5 is huge for this one, obviously.
So we keep calling this kind of a wake up call, right? Like we looked at that Orlando season as maybe that's what snapped them out of the funk, or Orlando series as that's what snapped them out of the funk. And they were feeling really good, right? And now it seems like they've kind of fallen into a lull again with these, games 3 and 4. I guess my question to either of you guys is, why are they falling asleep? Like, what's happening here to the team whose effort and energy level was at such a high level for 82 games? Well, we shouldn't call it 82 games. It's probably something like 76 games, right? They did have some bad games during the season, but they weren't as consistent as this. So like what's catching them off guard? What's throwing them off their rhythm? Why are we seeing performances out of this group that just frankly look a little uncharacteristic based off of the team they have been through those 82 games?
To me, it's, a compliment and a bit of a detriment that they adopt the personality of their coach. JB Bickerstaff is unflappable. He's never going to get too high. He's never going to get too low. I think that's exactly what we're seeing with this roster, and that plays one way in the regular season. The playoffs are a very different brand of basketball, and the Pistons are learning that in real time, but they're not going to overreact. Personality-wise, on the court-wise, in the game plan-wise. Now, we could say that is consistency and solid for your players. We could call that being a little too stubborn or slow to react. But, to me, it's not that they're lethargic or lazy or anything like that. It's just they're not a team with a personality that's going to freak out over a few bad minutes, a few bad possessions, or even a bad game. They think they know the formula for what makes them successful, and we've seen it in action. but it's a lot harder to use that formula in the playoffs to win on a night-to-night basis than it was in the regular season.
Yeah, and I think like the only thing I'd add to that is, I mean, the Pistons, they've said it themselves. I think a lot of their wounds are self-inflicted, but I also do think the Cavs have done a better job than I've thought, at least defensively throughout the series. And specifically, I mean, I think they made some changes when the series shifted back to Cleveland, but Orlando, obviously a tough defensive team, like really 1 through 5, and Cleveland's a bit of a different story, but Jalen Duren's had a tough time with, like, when he gets clear and he goes to the paint, okay, like Jared Allen isn't in front of you anymore, but it's still Evan Mobley, who's a guy who won Defensive Player of the Year. So I think that goes a little bit into it as well. Like, I think the Cavs have done a good job, even though some of the turnovers and just missed shots on easy opportunities are certainly self-inflicted. And we'll talk about spacing too. I know we have a comment in there, but that would obviously make things easier, which is a roster change that we can all expect in the offseason, I think.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next, actually, that comment here from OG Unnamed YouTube user, our guy. Thanks for the comment again. But he says, I think anyone who thought that 60 regular season wins proved that spacing wasn't an issue was drinking the Kool-Aid. Poor spacing is killing them in the playoffs. Game planning in a series is a real thing. So is the story offensively spacing, right? Is that what's been going on here through these first 2 series? Or is there a little more color to add to the story? What do you guys think?
Well, to me, it's spacing in the sense that it's kind of played out differently in both series. Spacing was an issue in Orlando because nobody could hit shots pretty much, period, except for Cade Cunningham. The big men had their struggles, but everyone had their struggles, and Cade sort of willed them offensively to a successful series. Cleveland, they're hitting shots. Yesterday was a bit of an exception, but like they're moving the ball because the Magic don't have, or the Cavs don't have the perimeter size and pressure that the Magic did, but the Cavs can just shut down the paint. And there's like spacing that gets created by rim pressure that the Pistons have really been able to rely on with their big men. And their big men absolutely no showing in this playoffs is really just absolutely, destroying their ability to space the floor. They're trying to create opportunities for Tobias. He's really stepping up. Previously, they'd really been able to get Duncan Robinson some good looks, but like the issue is just that without big men being much of a threat at all, and you can throw a Asar into that too, there's just only so much you can do. And it's getting easier for the Cavs to figure it out, and it's getting harder for the Pistons to sort of scheme themselves open or scheme themselves out of these sort of structural flaws that they have.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking too, Blake. And I'd be curious to get your kind of take on this as well, just because like we were saying it all through that Orlando series, right? Like the Pistons aren't really being guarded all that differently here in the playoffs. You could say the intensity's been ramped up. I'd be sympathetic to that. I think that's part of it for sure. And we're getting some more creative pick and roll coverages, specifically out of the Cavs. What they've been doing to blitz Cade in game 4 was new and a nice adjustment out of them. And it forced a couple of turnovers. But I still think even with that, it was like Cade could have reacted better to it. And honestly, to me, that's what I'm seeing. It's just a bunch of young guys that could be reacting better to these things they've seen quite a bit during the regular season. We're not seeing Jalen Duren getting to leverage the short roll. Hardly at all. I can't remember a point actually at all in this series so far where he's really been able to hit that weak side corner out of a short roll or hit Asar Thompson on a baseline cut. That was something that was bankable offense all season. And that's not a spacing issue. That's they're not getting the ball to Jalen Duren in that spot because the defense is slightly different. They're not forcing the issue offensively. And then in the instances where Duren does get it, he kind of looks like a deer in the headlights. And Asar Thompson was really poor as a cutter in game 4 too. So it just seems to me like we're looking at Ausar's not reacting to the spacing constraint the same way. Jalen Duren's not reacting to the spacing constraint the same way. It's forcing Cade Cunningham to press a little bit. And the ball is, Sean, like you kind of said earlier, it's just kind of snowballing when things go bad anyway.
Yeah, and I think those opportunities when Duren does get it in the short roll, like Richard brought it up in the comments here, the game looks a little bit too fast. I mean, I think processing and decision making has always been a discussion point with Duren, but I think something is whether it is if the game is a little bit faster pace or it's just how the defense is being handled. He's seeing more pressure in the paint and it's tough to make a decision that way. I mean, Cade had 8 turnovers in game 3, 5 in game 4, and then Jalen Duren and Ausar Thompson have 4 turnovers apiece in game 4. So I think that pressure a little bit is just causing them to make quicker decisions, and it's not lending itself into the Pistons' favor. And unfortunately, I think that's a hard thing to just adjust on the fly, especially based on what we've seen over the postseason so far. But yeah, it's just tough because you hear like Jalen Duren say after every game, it's on him. He needs to be better and everything. But we're sort of seeing the same problems come into play over the course of these 2 series. And it's not a huge sample size of games by any means, but just the fact that we're seeing the same problems come back to bite the Pistons is a little bit of a cause for concern, but they figured it out in the first round. So obviously there's the option to figure it out in round 2 as well.
Well, the only thing I'd say is from a big man perspective, they didn't figure anything out. They won in spite of their lack of production from their big men. That could still happen, but I have no reason to believe we're going to get superior performances than we've gotten from either Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart in these playoffs. Like, they are what they are and they're delivering what they can deliver. And Duren certainly is not a finished product. Stewart's a little closer to his peak, but I don't think he's as healthy as his ability to impact things on the defensive end. And you don't really rely on him for that much offense, but like, it's not like if they beat Cleveland, they're going to be able to go to New York and face Mitchell Robinson and be like, all right, Duren, this is your series. Like, the Duren we have is the Duren we have right now. And it's going to be a lot of off-season reflection and skill development and figuring out, like, to me, it's not too fast for him. It's a situation where Duren, just like every other player, is like, I'm on the floor. What can I do to positively impact this game? And Duren has had a certain bag of tricks that he could always turn to and say, when I do these things, I'm having a positive impact on my team's ability to win. This is what I can rely on. They've taken that away. And now you suddenly have a player who doesn't know how to positively impact the game on the floor. And it's making him do bad things and leading to mistakes. And it's not like he's suddenly going to learn new skills, and he's not going to be a player that's like, how can I be on this floor and just not make things worse? Like, that's just not the mentality of a basketball player. They want to do things to win. And right now they're just not, they don't have the roster scheme, and he doesn't have the talent in his bag right now to make that happen in a playoff situation against a really good defensive team.
Let's stick with Duren for a second. That's kind of where I wanted to go next anywhere, honestly. So, like, John, I agree. I think that was, as OG unnamed YouTube user says, very good analysis. And honestly, I'm trying to think about this a little bit productively, and I'll readily admit that I struggle a bit with this, because with Jalen Duren, to me, I've gotten to the point where the best I can figure is he just needs to play better, which is really not a productive bit of analysis. You know, usually when a guy's struggling, you can nitpick some things, right? You can say, okay, well, like, he's making a misread here, or he's doing something here that he shouldn't be doing, or they're throwing this coverage here, so you could adjust. And I don't know what he can do differently other than just like be the guy you were in the regular season. Cause they bring up, I think it was Big Cheese in the comment section. Like he's bumbling passes and he's mistiming rebounds. He's mistiming his rolls every now and again. He just looks rudderless in a way that I don't think we've seen from him in 4 years here in the NBA. So like, what can he do to productively change the course here? How can he get himself back on track? Have you seen anything? Because I'm at a loss. I'll be honest with you.
I mean, to me, it's hard to say, but it's basically like, don't worry about scoring. I mean, he reached all NBA level because he became a dangerous, reliable, consistent scorer in multiple ways. It's almost like to get the best out of Duren in these playoffs, you need to wipe that from his mind and just be like the garbage man, big man, rim runner that you were in the first few years. Just get a few opportune baskets, put all of your mental energy and focus on rebounding and defense. That's what this team needs that you can deliver on even in these playoffs at this level. Like that you can bring day in and day out. I wish if he could just lock into that. Cade Cunningham is a scorer that can pick up that load. Tobias Harris is delivering. Other players are being able to step up on the offensive end. He's doing more harm with his offensive mistakes than he could be delivering with whatever offense he can muster in these playoffs. So like, just don't worry about offense for Duren. Focus on the defense, focus on the rebounding, focus on setting screens. And, those are very valuable big men traits. And if he did that, the team would be better off for it.
Yeah, I was going to say this because like in the regular season, I think our answer when discussing Duren is we would even want him to be more aggressive and get more shots and be a little bit more selfish. Hasn't like the most shots he's taken in a game over the postseason is 11, which was game 1 in Cleveland. And he's had nights with like 6 shots, 4 shots. So I don't know if you really just want to say it, Jalen Duren, just go out and get yours, because we haven't seen that go well. So yeah, I don't know if that answer that we were discussing over the regular season is the same in the postseason because of how hard it's been to get easy shots near the rim. And like you said, obviously Cade Cunningham still brings the scoring. Tobias Harris is doing what he does really night in and night out. So yeah, I agree. I feel like you don't need much more. Like you don't need Jalen Duren to be the 19 point per game scorer that he was in the regular season. You just need him to not be a negative, which is hard and not very good analysis either. But like, that's really all it is. You can't have 4 turnovers from your big man in a postseason game.
Yeah, not if he's not gonna offset it with something else offensively. And I mean, before this series started, Blake, we're kind of talking about the ability of Duren to generate some free throws, because that's something that's really gone away here in the playoffs. I believe he led the team in free throw attempts per game. And that's a big deal, even if he's not going to make the shots, right? It's kind of a similar story with the Sar. If you could get them to the line, even if they're not going to make the free throws, that's getting the other team into foul trouble, right? And it feels to me, even when he's on these drives against a big that he should be able to punish in Evan Mobley, he shouldn't be really strong enough to stay in front of Duren on an ISO drive. He seems so disoriented on the drive and he's a little more upright than he was, that he just doesn't explode up and then Mobley gets an easy block where like you need more of the little late drive he had in the fourth quarter against Jarrett Allen, where he just got low, went up, exploded through and dunked it. And then we didn't see that again the rest of the fourth quarter. It's just really bizarre, Sean, honestly. Is this just you think this is just lack of experience, young guy in a playoffs with a lot of expectations? Is that kind of the overthinking that's going on here to your eye?
Yeah, I think he's just in his head, honestly. I mean, I think he would not be, even if he was playing at like an optimal level, he would not be at the level he was in the regular season. But a lot of these mistakes, a lot of these waiting a second too long, a lot of these going for finesse when he should be going for power when he should be going for finesse. He doesn't feel like he can rely on his instincts right now. He doesn't feel very confident. He feels very much in his own head. And like I said before, that's the kind of thing where you're a 22-year-old big man. You experience the season. You have a lot of success. You experience these playoffs. It's been a disaster. He has leveled up his game year to year in a way that I'm happy with. So I feel like, this will be valuable learning experience and tools for him to raise his game to another level. But you don't get to fast forward. You got to go through this and come what may, and then hope that he uses it to build out his game, knowing what it will take to be successful in playoffs this time next year.
Yeah, but like even Kobe was shooting up air balls in the playoffs early on in his career. I guess we got that going for us.
That's a interesting comp. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still think that this team, obviously, even though you're not getting what you need out of Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart's not going to give you the offense, and we know Asar Thompson certainly isn't out there for what he brings on the offensive end. Like, I think you're still getting enough of what you need to win games. Like, you're not going to run through every team in the postseason with Tobias Harris as your number 2 scorer, even though thus far in the postseason, it's kind of looked like you can. But Karis LeVert comes out and drops 24 points in game 4, and Paul Reed's been a great spark off the bench. I know he hasn't always got the minutes, but like, I think the offense can still be there without Duren giving you as much. But it's a heck of a hill to climb up when Jalen Duren isn't producing like you thought he would. And then you also have to make up for the lack of like what Asar Thompson gives you on offense. And I totally think that everything Asar has given you on defense is totally worth that trade-off, other than last night in game 4 when he had really his first rough game of the postseason. But it's just a heck of a hill to climb.
All right, let's one last downer topic here, guys, before we try to look forwards, maybe bring a little more optimism.
I got plenty of downer topics. What are you talking about?
Well, I only want one more. I can only take it. I'm weak in constitution in that way. But Sean, Asar Thompson, really, like Blake said, really struggled there in game 4. I would agree. I think that was his worst playoff game to date, even going back into last year's series against the Knicks. So, like, what was kind of going wrong there? We just did the Pistons Pulse. Like, Asar in the second half got chewed out by JB Bickerstaff, and on the very next play got chewed out by Cade Cunningham. Like, he really struggled. So what was going wrong? And I mean, we got full faith he's going to right the ship, but how is he going to right the ship?
I mean, to me, Asar is a player that has a short memory, so I don't think he's inherently going to carry over what was a disaster of a game on both ends into the next game. But, the game was rough because I think he's letting the fouls the trouble he's getting himself into, and it dictated his mentality on both ends. I think that's lesson learned. He'll probably avoid that even if he gets in foul trouble next game. Hopefully a better home whistle. He does not find himself with too early fouls because, he's an aggressive, instinctual player. And when you get those kind of fouls so early in back-to-back games, again, it's a guy that can't rely on his instincts. And, he is not going to use like high level finesse and skill. He's going to use this sort of like attack mentality on defense, and he's going to be quicker to the ball than you, but it's only going to work if he thinks that quickness is going to pay off with a deflection, a steal, a positive play, and not a third foul, a fourth foul. And just that split second of hesitation or making a different decision based on what your gut's telling you, it can just really exacerbate quickly. And I think that's what we saw with Asar. He was trying to kind of play through some of these doubts he was having, or just this lack of confidence that he was going to be able to stay on the floor, and it just sort of manifested in all the worst ways. But I mean, I think that's just like the past is the past, and you go into next game knowing that Ausar is like the second most important player on your team after Cade Cunningham, and you put him on the floor and you ask him to guard Donovan Mitchell, and you see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a game that you sort of just have to throw out of the window because of how important Ausar Thompson is to this team. And I mean, honestly, I'd argue he's been one of the most exciting players to watch in the postseason, like just as a whole across the league, just because of what he does defensively and how huge it is for this team. And it, I mean, it's just so hard to make up for what he doesn't give you on offense, especially when Jalen Duren's getting you like 4 or 5 shots, maybe 6 or 8 points a night. But I think it is something that JB Bickerstaff can work around. And I mean, if we want to talk about the decisions of letting Duren sort of play through some of his struggles, where it seems like Ausar has a bit of a shorter leash, probably because of what he has been offensively. We certainly can, but I just want to see more of Ausar Thompson and like let him play through some of that a little bit more. I understand it can be hard at times just because of offense, but I think how impactful of a player and how like important he is to this group, like allows him or should allow him to have a little bit of a longer leash.
I want to just stick on that coaching point there for a second. Like I've seen a little bit of that. Like, why does Ausar get pulled when he's struggling versus now Jalen Duren still gets to close games even when he's having a rough night? And like, I just don't really get it. Like, you coach different players differently, right? As Ausar Thompson, when he was struggling in game 4, he's struggling because of the things he can control and has already shown he can't control in the playoffs. He was losing Donovan Mitchell off ball because he was overhelping for some reason. He was not being aggressive at all with the ball in his hands, 8 feet and in, which, he can't do that. If he gets the ball in the paint, he's got to be able to go up and at least make something happen, be that a foul or hopefully a made layup. But even if it's not that, like, you got to get a decent shot attempt out of Ausar Thompson getting a paint touch. And he just wasn't doing that, right? When a guy's not playing up to his own standard in that way, it's a little different than a guy who's kind of clearly, like Sean brought up, going through some confidence crisis of identity issues like Jalen Duren is. That requires a little more of a softer touch, lack of focus for a guy that's already performed really well. I think that's right to require a little bit firmer of a touch. But I mean, do you disagree at all? And Sean, you can chime in too as well. But I'm just curious, am I nuts for that one?
I mean, no, but I just think I think Ausar like not closing games at certain points is kind of crazy. And like, I do understand the thought behind it, but I just think he should be out there because of how important he is to this team. And I mean, you can certainly do some defense, offense subs. Obviously, if you're down 2 and need a 3 and you have the ball, you're not going to want Ausar Thompson out there. But I just think how important he is and like how well he's played over the postseason other than game 4. I think he does deserve a little bit of slack, but obviously all like the issues and everything we brought up are valid too. So it's a hard point, and I think we see how JB Bickerstaff leans, but I do wonder if that's an adjustment he makes. I struggle to believe he will because we've sort of seen how he's managed it thus far. But maybe it is. Who knows?
Yeah, to me, Ausar is held to a higher standard because he's a higher level thinker and player. That's no knock on anyone else. I think that's just a credit to Ausar. When he messes up, he should know he messed up, and his version of not playing at his best is so much higher than a lot of other people's on defense that it feels like, why are you getting on him for this mistake that everybody makes? Is like, well, that's because that's Asar Thompson. That's one of the best, if not the best, perimeter defenders in the league, and we need him to perform at that level. But to me, he's a victim of also roster construction. If this team had other three-point shooters on the floor, they would be able to put Asar on the floor and have him guard the other team's best defender and go on with their day. They don't have that. And so now you're in a situation where Asar's lack of offense is having a domino effect on other limited offensive players being able to scheme something into getting an open or good look for them, not even Asar. You don't have that kind of trickle-down effect with Jalen Duren because he's, a rim-running big. So Malik Beasley is a terrible defender, so it's not like I want Malik Beasley and Duncan Robinson on the floor together. But like if you had 2 3-point shooters on the other side of Asar, he'd be on the floor in the fourth quarter in crunch time and he wouldn't leave. This team just needs a certain level of talent. And that's been, we've known that's the case all season. We knew where the fatal flaws of this roster were. We know how it needs to grow. We're just seeing it in real time, and it stinks because they do so many good things. They do so many things well. They don't shoot. And so it's hard to have a complete non-shooter on the floor.
All right, so let's kind of shift focus moving into the future. And to do that, I unfortunately want to go and look backwards one last time because YouTube user brought up a really good defensive point here. And I was curious to see your guys' thoughts on this. So he says, overall, the guys were trying to do too much and help. It wasn't just Asar, it was the entire team besides maybe Duncan Robinson there. And that's my eye too. And this has been a consistent thing, I think, over the entire season for the Pistons. When the defense starts falling for them, what's going wrong is they're giving up paint touches. They're over pursuing shooters. They get beat off the dribble. And then now you can kind of kick out. You can swing, shoot. I mean, the Cavs had a beautiful ball movement 3 for Donovan Mitchell there in that third quarter run where they get a nice paint touch from Harden, kicks out to the corner, swing. Donovan Mitchell there on that former strong side wing wide open for 3. Like that's the kind of stuff that gets them in trouble. And they're running Dean Wade off the line. They're sprinting out to Evan Mobley at times. I get it when it's Sam Merrill. I get it when it's Donovan Mitchell or James Harden. But otherwise, controlled closeout would be much more ideal. And actually, honestly, guys, even in the case of a Donovan Mitchell, like don't close out short. Give a good hard closeout, but don't fly by him either. I'd rather have him take a contested 3 than give up the drive at this point. So is that what you guys are seeing as well, Sean, or is there something else kind of that went wrong defensively there in that third quarter that they can correct?
I think you're exactly correct. This is what we've seen all season, but it's like, to me, it is a feature, not a bug. This is the defense they have built. And it isn't so much to me over pursuing to the 3-point line. It's that they play so tightly in the paint that they have so much space they need to recover. It drives me crazy, especially with Cade. He sags into the paint so much when he should be closer to me to his assignment on the perimeter. And when things are going well, it's almost like, to me, when you strain a muscle, you try and do too much to try and compensate for something. They can see things going wrong and they're just instinctually pushing a little too hard out to the perimeter. They're flying by their guy when they need to stay locked in because they're just trying to they're an effort team. They're putting in that little bit of extra effort because they're hoping it's the defensive stop that leads to a turnaround in the game. And when it doesn't work, it creates these open looks, it creates easy passing lanes, and it creates, a 21-22-0 run to start the third quarter. And it just becomes very bad. But it's not like this team is not going to be an overhelping team. Like that is baked into the cake. That's just what they do.
Yeah, and I think that lends itself into the foul issue that you've seen pop up at times, and that JV Bickerstaff was certainly not very pleased about after game 4, after the Pistons take 12 free throws and Donovan Mitchell takes 15 by himself. The Cavs take 34 as a team. They make 30 free throws in a game they won by 9 points. So I understand why he was upset there, but I do think at least some of those fouls are a product of how this team is defending, and you have players like Donovan Mitchell and James Harden who can get to the line at a higher rate than most other players that you're going to see. Not saying the foul discrepancy should be that drastic, but I think it does play a little bit of a part in that we have seen and we might see moving forward as well.
Yeah, to me, the biggest issue, from my, I guess, biased perspective, it is not the amount of free throws that Cleveland generated for themselves. It is the lack of commensurate free throws that the Pistons were able to manifest, because they are driving into the lane, getting into the paint, creating contact that I see that I thought should have generated more free throws. They are just not a team that sells contact like James Harden or other players. Like, that is not part of their DNA. They just struggle with that sometimes. And, when a crew kind of has a semblance of an idea of how each team is performing, those issues, that's another issue that can just snowball, because they think they know how Detroit's generating shots and what deserves a whistle and what doesn't. And then they have a different picture of what Cleveland is generating. And I just thought there was a lot of no calls that, to me, should have gotten Detroit back on the line and maybe helped balance out the game a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'd
echo that.
You win the points in the paint battle 50-34, and the team that scores 50 points in the paint only shoots 12 free throws. I don't think you see that too often.
No, you don't. And I don't know, it was I've got two thoughts on this one, because on the one hand, it was getting really ridiculous. Like in game 4, Donovan Mitchell on a fast break just ran towards Asar Thompson at half court and fell down, like clearly trying to draw another. I think it would have been the 4th foul on Asar, and they didn't reward that behavior. But that there was a lot of that sort of thing going on for Cleveland. Like you mentioned, selling the contact. The 3-point foul for Duncan Robinson on James Harden was especially ridiculous to me. If there was contact on that forearm, it was a graze at best. That's a no call just because James Harden flailed. That honestly could have been an offensive foul more than anything else to me. And then you're not getting that same sort of respect on the other end. So that's frustrating. And I feel the frustration too. At the same time, that was the same story in game 2. Right after game 1, the Cavs go to the media, they whine, they cry, they say, we need more free throws. This is BS. We're upset about it because the Pistons just push and they're not a good defensive team. And then they go out in game 2 and they get rewarded for that. They get rewarded for going out and crying to the refs a little bit there and crying to the league. They get more free throws. I think they made more free throws than the Pistons attempted in that game. Now, it was more balanced than what we saw in games 3 and 4, but it was still a pretty stark discrepancy. Didn't matter. The Pistons still won. They closed out the game nicely and finished. So I understand the focus on this, and it's frustrating for me too as a fan sitting down watching this. At the same time, it shouldn't matter if the Pistons are playing the way that they can. They showed us they can go out and win these games, right? So on the one hand, Sean, are you expecting to see a little bit of a correction here? I mean, JB Bickerstaff just went and did exactly what Kenny Atkinson did, which he's more than justified in doing because it worked for the other team, so why not? But also, is that really the one key thing? Is that the swing factor, or is it just kind of noise?
I mean, somehow the answer is both, because what you're seeing in this series, what you're seeing through these whole playoffs is the Pistons are not playing very well, and yet they are forcing the other team to play horribly or even worse or not very well, depending on the game. It is not pleasant to see the Pistons perform on offense throughout this postseason. They're still a really good defense. They're forcing a lot of bad shots. And so any one thing can be the deciding factor. It could be fast break points. It could be points off turnovers. It could be the free throw battle. It could be offensive rebounding, because all these games are hinging on sort of one critical flaw that's manifesting. So, in game 5. Do I expect Cleveland to get a lot of free throws? Yeah, because the Pistons foul all the time. That's what they do. Do I expect the Pistons to get to the free throw line a heck of a lot more than they got last game? Yeah, because all season they've been one of the most prolific free throw shooting teams in the league. They generate looks. I expect it to be rewarded more in this next game than it was the previous.
Yeah, and I mean, if Kenny Atkinson's point was like Donovan Mitchell is shooting 50% less free throws than he shot in the regular season, Cade Cunningham takes just 3 free throws. So after he averaged, pretty much him and Donovan Mitchell were at the same, like they got to the line on average 6 times a game in the regular season. So I think you can expect Cade to at least get to the line a little bit more. I mean, maybe you see him force the issue a little bit, but to your point, I think there were some no calls for a team that gets in the paint and lives there as much as the Pistons do. I definitely think you'll see them shoot more than 12 free throws in game 5, certainly.
Yeah, I'm with YouTube user here in the chat saying that basically, the officiating's been bad, but the Pistons have lost the games. I'll amend that to say the Pistons lost game 3. It was their mistakes, their turnovers late that took away what should have been a win to go up 3-1. I think the Cavs went out and stomped them a little bit there in the third quarter of game 4. Donovan Mitchell was unbelievable. So I'll credit to that Cavs team for what they did there in that quarter. The one thing I will complain about, though, is Donovan Mitchell's getting foul calls on floater attempts, and conventional wisdom says that just should not happen. That, you go hard to the rim, you get the foul call, not, stop short, do a little floater from just inside the free throw line, and now you get the call anyway. So I'll complain about that. That's my one little old man yelling at the cloud thing. But let's look ahead. Let's look to the game 5 here. So what are you guys expecting to see, right? We're kind of talking, we think the Pistons are probably going to come out a little bit more forcefully here, but is there a minor adjustment? I'm thinking specifically on the offensive end here to how the Cavs have shifted their coverage on Cade. What can they do, they being the Pistons, Sean, to get some semblance of offensive rhythm back here as we move into game 5?
I mean, I don't know if it's a minor adjustment, but it is the critical adjustment. How is Cade Cunningham going to react to, 2 guys blitzing to the ball? And he wasn't reacting well. It's something he struggled with throughout his career. They need to figure that out, whether it is, bringing the screens up higher to create more space to navigate, whether it is having Dennis Jenkins, the ultimate barometer of Pistons success, because he's either the worst player on the floor or a critical component to a Pistons win. But they don't have many ball handlers to turn to. I mean, maybe you put Karras on the floor and, you could have got 60% of that Karras performance in game 4. And if everyone else plays 80% of their level, that's a Pistons win probably. But so many players played so terribly that a heroic Karras LeVert effort was not enough. But he can manipulate the defense a little bit. He can handle the ball a little bit. He can kind of create seams when there's a blitz that he can sort of do something with what the defense is giving him. So, and I really hope they can figure out how to scheme Duncan Robinson open again. They just totally took Duncan Robinson out of the game. And the thing that concerned me most about game 4 was not just the mistakes. It was seeing Cade not trust his teammates in a way that he usually does. And it really seemed like Cade had the ball in his hands with no idea or plan on how to work with it, because he's just like, I have nothing to pass this out to. I have nothing that can be created. So I just got to do something myself. That's not usually a trap Cade finds himself in, but I just really found him doubting what his team could do on the floor in a way that did concern me. So I just want to see, much better defensive performance from Ausar, better defense from Duren. Hopefully that opens up some of those transition offense opportunities that just lets the Detroit offense breathe and puts everyone into their comfort zone, because Cade in his comfort zone is like the most dangerous guy on the floor. And that's what we need to see.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Duncan Robinson too, because I mean, he's just so important to this team with the spacing concerns and how much that's always a topic. And yet, like, Cade shot the ball better over the postseason, and Tobias as well. But I think Duncan Robinson really just opens things up, and he has to, because he's your only like knockdown 3-point shooter that's playing next to Cade Cunningham, and especially when you have Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson on the floor at the same time. I think the Cavs did a good job of limiting him in game 4, but they, like, JB just needs to find a way to make sure Duncan Robinson gets open looks, because I mean, he just can't take 2 shots in a game again and only score 4 points. Like, I think you need him to at least get up 6 or 7 threes a game and hopefully knock down 3 of them. Because elsewhere, like, Cade shot the ball fine, Tobias did too, but you're not getting that high level shooting performance, and the Pistons aren't going to be where other teams are shooting the ball. But on a night where Donovan Mitchell's throwing up 12 threes, Harden's throwing up 9, it's just tough to keep up with. And they did for a while because Mitchell was off, but it's not always going to be like that. Like, we quickly came to find out in the third quarter there.
And Duncan Robinson is listed as questionable here for Game 5. So that's a storyline to watch, I think. Let me throw
Green then. Get Javonte Green.
Javonte Green. He struggled shooting wise in the playoffs here. He's not been and he's been overzealous defensively too. It is what it is. I wanted to see if I could propose a solution to you guys for that blitzing coverage that they had in the pick and roll. And this is something we didn't see all that much in the regular season, but I'm curious if it could be kind of the kryptonite to what the Cavs are trying to do. Have Asar Thompson set the screens, the high ball screens, instead of Duren. I know that takes away from the 2-man game from JD, but one, you could get Asar Thompson in the short roll. And I'd just be curious to see if they'd still blitz Evan Mobley off Asar Thompson. I mean, Evan Mobley's taken the Asar Thompson assignment, and most of the time he's been the rover, right? He's kind of leaving him alone, and this is why it's been very important to see Asar Thompson as a cutter. But if you make Asar Thompson the screener in the pick and roll, is Evan Mobley going to play up at the level? Is he still going to blitz Cade? Is he going to sag back down? The easier thing to do would be to just reject the screen, right? Like, go the other way. But I wonder if that's maybe a creative thing that could work for a couple possessions, force their hand to take themselves out of it.
I mean, to me, the big men are so ineffectual that the more you can use Asar as a big man, like, it creates opportunity. He has big man skills. Give me small ball defense. I don't care. Like, they got to switch a couple things up. I mean, rebounding is a concern, obviously, but, like, you got to have a solution for what what Duren and Stu are not providing. And I just don't expect them to be able to provide it. So, like, getting creative with how you're running the offense, who's out on the floor, the kind of lineups you're deploying. Again, that's not the JB Bickerstaff style. He's not going to rip up his season-long game plan. But, I mean, I just don't have any expectation that Duren and Stu are going to figure it out. So we're just in a reality where the Pistons need to navigate what that means for them as a team on offense, for them as a team on defense.
Real quick, Blake, YouTube user brings up a good point. Asar Thompson in the regular season, very bad at setting screens. I think that is accurate. That's very true. He was not very good at that. Frankly, I don't think you need him to be for this to work. You just need him to kind of be there and then hope that Cade doesn't get blitzed. And if he does, he's playing out of the short roll anyway. Because the problem, right, with the Cavs blitzing these screens, Blake, is that the screen itself is not effective. They blitz it, they force him back, and now you don't get any momentum going downhill. So it doesn't matter how good Duren set that first screen. They're just blitzing Cade, pushing him back away from the ball. And to your point earlier, Sean, Cade's not getting that ball out of his hands quickly, which he's supposed to do, and he hasn't been. And we've kind of seen the snowball from there. So, Blake, curious your thoughts on all this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think it would be a good adjustment just to see if it works and makes Duren's life a little bit easier, creates more looks for Duncan Robinson. I mean, I still would worry about turnovers with Asar Thompson, but even in that, like Sean said, I'm not confident it would be something that we would realistically see, because it does feel like a pretty drastic change to the offense for me that I don't think JB Bickerstaff will make all of a sudden in the postseason when you're still tied 2-2 in the series. So while I love to see it, I unfortunately think it's not very likely.
And to me, I think, in the darkest moments of these playoffs against Orlando, the thing I was reflecting on, that even when it's good, I still reflect on, even right now, is what I reflect on is, why did the Pistons not make a big move at the deadline? They had assets to make a move. It's because Trajan Langdon wanted to see what his guys could do in a postseason environment, a real one, not just a feel-good first-round series. Well, mission accomplished for better and for worse. And I don't think Trajan Langdon had any illusions about what or how likely and for worse was. I think he's collecting data. And this is what we're getting. Like, this is the team we have. This is the skill set they have. These are the flaws they have. I think with every, rotation, every substitution pattern, every quarter, every game, the Pistons know exactly, like, the clarity of what they need to do in the offseason becomes clearer and clearer. And, I don't think fans should ever lose sight of how valuable that is. Like, yeah, they're going to keep playing Duren. Yeah, he's the starting center. Yeah, he's struggling. He's not doing certain things well. There's positives to that. Even if it means that the Pistons don't make the Eastern Conference Finals, or they make the Eastern Conference Finals and it goes 4 games or 5 games or 6 games, or they make the finals and they get swept by Oklahoma City. Like, I don't think any Pistons fan is under the illusion that this is a team destined for an NBA title. It's all about, like, what are these players delivering on? What are they learning? And how is the franchise going to use that information in the offseason? And whether they're going to lose to Orlando in the offseason or in that first round series, whether they're going to beat or lose to Cleveland in this series, like, the shopping list is becoming more and more stark to me. And the Pistons still have all those assets to make moves that they obviously need to make an actual title team.
Yeah, and I think a little of that was this notion that this year is maybe not the year to win a title, but a year where there's so much weirdness going on in the East, and the Pistons win 60 games. You can make a run to the finals, and who knows what happens from there. But I don't think all of a sudden next year, when the Celtics have a full year of Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton's back, like, I don't think that the Pistons are all of a sudden not a contender in this conference, especially if you use your assets that you've built and maintain that flexibility to improve the roster. Because, I mean, Cade's going to get better. We'll see. I mean, Duren's still young. He'll get better. We'll see what happens with everything else, and Asar Thompson. But, like, we just saw the Celtics, who were a favorite, lose to the 76ers and give up a 3-1 lead. So I just don't think that this is, like, the year. Would a finals run be cool? Yes. But I think, like you said, Sean, if this isn't the year where this team is going to win a title necessarily. I think you need to take what you learned for this year, improve based on that, put a better roster around Cade Cunningham. Like Trajan Langdon's done a good job since he's got in there's some other things he can do. Yes. But I think he's seen what he needs to see, hopefully, to make the moves he has to make to take this team even to the next level.
Yeah. And I don't even say that to discount, like, I don't say this because I think this series is lost. I just think it's not the whole point. Like, this is the enjoyable part of rooting for a team that is young and coming up and has so much talent, is like, they are not a finished product. This series is not the end all be all of their development or their season. Yeah. It is the kind of valuable learning each one of these players needs to do to be their best selves. And, we're seeing it because they've made it through two rounds of what is, a playoff gauntlet. They're learning what playoff basketball really looks like. So, to me, I'm hoping they win. I'm rooting for them to win. I think they have a better than even shot to win the next game. I think it's a toss-up series. They could very easily win. They could blow out Cleveland in Cleveland because they have that kind of talent, that kind of defense. Maybe it goes the other way, but like, they're learning the lessons they need to learn, and Trajan Langdon is learning what he needs to do to make the team better.
I love it. So let's end on this, guys. I want to get our predictions here for Game 5, but before we do that, I want to share a little fun history. So in the year that the Pistons went down 3-1 to the Magic, came back and won that series, right? That was 2002, 2003. Well, their second round series, so far, they are also mimicking, at least in terms of the game results. So that second round series back then, that was against the 76ers, as well as a 1-4, Pistons being the 1 seed, obviously. It went Pistons, Sixers, and then Pistons. So it's still on the table, guys. It's still on the table to continue to give an homage to that going to work team in 2002, 2003. If they can pull off a Pistons in 6 here, let's just not talk about how that series and the conference finals win against the New Jersey Nets at the time. That's bad news. So we won't want to think about that. But regardless, predictions for Game 5. What do you guys think is going to happen here?
I think the Pistons take Game 5. I think Cleveland probably takes Game 6, and then you really find out what both teams are made of in Game 7, and it'll be awfully interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say Pistons. I don't know. I'm sort of thinking the home team stands pat for no reason other than that's what the Cavs have done thus far over the postseason, and I think after round 1 with the Magic, the Pistons are going to want to hold on to home court. So I'm leaning right now Pistons in 7. Wes, I guess I hope you don't have the same prediction for Game 5, because that'll probably jinx us at that point.
Well, unfortunately, I do have the same prediction for Game 5. They've responded well all year. There was a little blip there in the Magic series, right, when they did go down 3-1. They were not responding well through those 5 games, but then they did. They figured it out. They turned it around, and outside of that first half there in Game 6, they did have a really nice finish to that series, and even started off, I thought, really strongly here against the Cavs at home. Yeah, they left a lot of meat on the bone in Game 1 and 2, in my opinion, but I thought that they seem to have learned some lessons, and now there's been a little slippage. So all that's to say, I do think that they're going to respond again. So I'm hoping for a Game 5 win. And so in order to be different, I'll say the Pistons continue that homage to the 03 team, right? And they go on the road in Cleveland, and then they win. And then we're just going to hope that the homage stops there. Otherwise, what Richard is bringing up here, a Knicks sweep in the conference finals would be on the table. So let's hope the homage ends at that point. But that'll be my prediction. I'll be optimistic. Let's have fun.
And I don't ask for much in this world, but I just really want to see a good old-fashioned James Harden meltdown in the playoffs. Just the most obvious, epic collapse with all the bright lights on him. It's like, a nice cozy, warm blanket you just want to slip into. Like, that just means everything's right in the world of the NBA. He's just absolutely embarrassing himself. That's all I want. Just one more game of that.
Well,
I think that's
still
perfect.
on the table.
That's the perfect note to end on, Sean.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. Let all the listeners know where one they can find your work, but also where they should be reading all their Pistons news. And then Blake, we can wrap this on up.
Yeah, I'll just plug the website, DetroitBadBoys.com. Hopefully everybody listening to this is familiar with that site. It's been going for 20-ish years now. So we're keeping it going, keeping it strong. And it actually pays some bills to keep shows going. So please read stories, disable your ad blockers. That's my plug.
That's a great point for life. But yeah, shout out to everyone for joining us, and reminder, you can call our phone line to ask a question, hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean, as always, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.